are here with the EFFL official podcast, episode 22. How's it going there, Todd?
Yay! Oh man, this is pretty exciting. This is number 22. 22,
yeah.
That's pretty awesome. So again, I want to thank our listeners, and you want to do your whole like, comment, subscribe thing. You do so well.
Yeah, actually, make sure you like, comment, subscribe, whatever sort of listening platform you're on. And then also, if you are on YouTube, we are doing some shorts as well. So make sure you ring that bell icon so that you get notified whenever we post any shorts, so that you can get some of those. Because we are sharing the same shorts that we put on our social media, such as our Instagram and TikTok and such like that. So by all means, make sure you check us out. Follow us if you're on YouTube. Pop that subscribe button and that bell for sure.
That is awesome. Again, thank you to all listeners for all your help over these 21 weeks.
22
so we are
now.
Rocking and rolling here.
Yeah.
So, as always, ExtremeFFL.com. You see it right above my head. That's where you go to get into all of this stuff. Everything from our leagues, our exchange, blah, 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 blah. Everything is there. Make sure you check out our sponsors at 123go.io and tabbyentertainment.com, as always. On today's show, man, Paul, I just spent a weekend down at the Fantasy Football Expo and the Hall of Fame in Canton, Ohio. So I got some news about that.
Yep.
Speaking of news, we have some NFL news and some injuries that are already starting to happen.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're going to go a little bit of a deep dive into our Extreme Exchange. So what you think?
Oh, yeah.
Sound pretty good?
Absolutely.
You ready for that?
Let's get into it.
All right. Hey, we'll be back in a quick second, so hang on.
Alrighty here. So we are back with episode 22, and we're getting right into the Fantasy Football Expo that you were at over at the NFL Hall of Fame, or were those two separate locations? Oh, here, 1 minute here.
I have never been to the NFL Hall of Fame before.
All right, 1 minute. I had yourself muted on accident there. So what was it?
Oh.
Was it at the Hall of Fame, or was it next to the Hall of Fame?
It was actually in the dome right behind the NFL Hall of Fame. So it was in the same little complex.
Nice.
Man, I had never even been to NFL Hall of Fame. I'm almost 60 years old, and it's only 3 hours away, and I never have gone there. But I'll tell you one thing, it was so cool. Bunch of old names, of course, things that, people and that you haven't heard of in a long time. And there's jerseys, and there's footballs, and there's cleats that were worn in critical times. And do you have your Drew Brees little soundbite there up handy that you can play for me?
I got my Drew Brees little soundbite here. We want to pop it out here. Let's get a little bit of Drew Brees in here.
Drew Brees.
Drew Brees. There we go.
So it was really cool because, he's not inducted in the Hall of Fame yet. So his time is not up. It'll be soon. But he did have a jersey there. So I kind of felt pretty cool. A jersey that he wore when he completed the pass for the most yards in NFL history. And that was cool. And seeing that. And then they have these statues of people's arms. And you can kind of compare your arm to how big their arms are, and their thighs to your thighs. And,
sure.
And, there's videos to watch and all this kind of stuff. But I got to say, we were walking through there, and there was some of the museum curators say, hey, you have to go to this hologram video. You got to come see it. It's a must watch. It's 17 minutes long. Come on in. And we kind of thought, okay, well, let's go in there. Well, not only is it missable, it was actually kind of boring. I was like, really? You're all this hype, and this is what it was?
What was it then? Was it just like a random hologram sitting?
It was a hologram of Joe Namath, so old school quarterback. And we're in the locker room, and they had the names of some of the players, and they had some of the jerseys on those players on the walls, that part's kind of cool. And you're kind of facing a stage, and then on the stage, Joe Namath walks out as a hologram. He's talking to you, and which is I guess kind of neat technology. But then they had a chalkboard off to the side, and all right, the guy who told us to come on in and see this thing was hyping it all up as it's going to be a hologram thing. The only hologram were like Joe Namath. Wasn't any other players there. I thought it might be like an immersive in a huddle kind of thing. It might have been like trying to run the ball down the field and get tackled kind of thing. No.
Right,
No.
like a little bit of a hologram show, but no, it was more
It
so
wasn't.
just
It
like a
was just some of the players, like 4 or 5 players in the NFL, and they had a little bit of a, I don't know, a 2-minute speech that they gave
right.
about, cheering you up and rah, rah, rah kinda thing, and I was like, "Mm, okay, well, that wasn't as exciting as it was just seeing these bronze busts of people and the heads
Oh, yeah, and we
and
got some of those bronze bust pictures actually on our social media, you could check that out.
yeah, it was cool being there. And actually, the whole Hall of Fame, they call it the Village now, is the Hall of Fame. There's a football stadium. There's a big entertainment building that has restaurants and some businesses inside there. Then there's the dome that the expo was in. Behind that, they're putting in a Ferris wheel and a water park. So they're making a whole big thing now. And actually, nice cat. They're actually
Sorry
because
about
there's a
that.
high school right next door, and I think the high school plays football games on the Hall of Fame football field. So that was pretty cool just being there. That was
Oh,
kind of
wow,
neat.
that'd be
But
so cool. That'd be awesome.
the biggest thing for the week was the Fantasy Football Expo. And like I said, that's in the dome. And we were lucky to we would be the VIP booth number 5. So we're
Oh, yeah,
right there on front.
that's super
People
cool.
walk right past us. Yeah. And I didn't know what to expect. It was our first time being there. I'll get to that in a second. But the coolest thing that we did was Friday night. So the expo with the exhibitors was Saturday and Sunday. But Friday, we were fortunate enough to be the party sponsor for Friday night. And there's a park in downtown Canton, Ohio called Centennial Plaza, and they had it all lit up in our cool purple color, and
Oh,
they had our
nice.
our our name and logo on a big screen, and they had a cornhole tournament there. They had a bunch of food around the edges you could get food at, and it was awesome weather, great place to be. And we were so lucky and happy that we chose to be the Friday night sponsor, because then for the next 2 days, people were like, "Oh, thank you for sponsoring Friday night,"
Oh, yeah.
and that was pretty cool.
I
That
heard
was
that it
pretty
was
cool.
a big party too, like, I heard it was a really good energy on that Friday night party too.
It was. So next year, you gotta come on
I
down
will have
and
to
join
be
us.
there next day. That'll
August 8th, 9th, and 10th. So put it in your calendar
Yeah,
next year,
and
August 8th.
all listeners too, make sure that you guys check it out too. Get on down there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, so then as an exhibitor, we got our booth put together and all those kind of things, and you would normally do, and so here we are, don't know what to expect, and there are some big companies pretty nearby, some small companies for the first time nearby. Also, there's a really good mix. They had a stage where they had breakout sessions, and some company was giving a half-hour speech on different things, different topics throughout both days, and it was just, to me, it was awesome just to sit there, have people walk on by and giving us a chance to explain a little bit about what the EFFL is
Right.
and how we're different, but not crazy. I don't want to give anybody a bad name, but there was another vendor there that has really kind of crazy things.
A little bit,
Like
outside the box thinking, you know?
Yeah, and which is not really even fantasy football. So I changed my spiel a little bit when I talk to somebody and say, "Hey, we have a new and different, but not crazy wonky
Right, it's
way of
familiar.
fantasy football."
Yeah,
Um,
it's familiar. It's really easy for somebody with a fantasy football mind to fit themselves into this league comfortably, right?
yeah, definitely.
Mhm.
And once I got into it and I tried to explain to them about the no long-term injuries, because you pick players, one time per a 9-week half, and got into the whole differences on what the EFFL is and or are, that really got their interest.
Yeah.
But then but then I dropped the hammer. And I tell you, Paul, this Extreme Exchange is amazing. um, 123go.io and Dominic and his team did a great job giving us a little bit of a demo that we could show on how those screens are going to look when it actually gets live. And
Nice.
I don't know, Paul. I don't want to exaggerate, but there were maybe 100 people, maybe.
Wow.
that were really interested in what the Extreme Exchange was and just how cool it was.
Yeah.
Uh, and that was awesome. It was very, very well received.
I mean,
So,
what a great community to talk to about that too. You know, really just some experts, people who have their own platforms for draft tips, people who have their own just like
mhm.
I imagine a million podcasts is what I heard about as well. So a lot of people just who have knowledge of the game and in the general environment, you know, that is the
Yeah,
NFL. And so, you know, just being able to hear it, we've always thought about it, Todd and I, that the Extreme Exchange is really incredible and like could absolutely be a really fun next great thing to explore, you know. And so
right.
yeah, it's awesome to get that kind of feedback. Definitely, if you guys are listening to this and if you're curious about what the Extreme Exchange is, you don't really know, I really want to remind you, just check it out. We have a lot of information on our website that you can go to look up some more stuff. We obviously
Yeah.
talk about it a whole bunch. We'll be talking about it later on as well too. But it's a very fun new format that I cannot push enough. I really think it's going to be really great.
It is. And when and at this expo, there were businesses who were walking around and you're doing the old, chit chat about what you do and what I do, and then we like maybe exchange cards or numbers, whatever it might be. And then there were fans that just happened to walk on through and they were interested. There's a woman from Green Bay, Appleton, Wisconsin, actually, who was there and all adorned out in her Green Bay
Oh yeah,
regalia. And
Cheesehead.
it was pretty cool. And she gave me probably 5 minutes, talked about our league, and she was super excited about it. And those are the kind of things I would never have met her before and wouldn't
Yeah.
have been a thing. But here we are in Canton, Ohio, and having a great time. And it was just an awesome experience.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome.
So,
I'm glad that we were a part of that community for this. This is awesome.
and because of that, I have a podcast tomorrow night. I'm a guest on one of the guys' podcast, and then
Oh
I have
yeah.
the podcast on Thursday night that I'm have another guy on, and then next Tuesday on our podcast we'll have a guest on there also. So
Do you know what
all these
podcast those are?
podcasts are happening.
We can let them know what podcast they are, or at least like who we're going to be talking to on their podcast if you know.
Yeah, tomorrow night I will be on with Louis G, and I don't
Nice.
remember Louis G's company name, top of my head, but he was very out there on all 3 days. So looking forward to being on a podcast with my partner Joe Bliss tomorrow night with Louis G, and
Nice.
then on Thursday. I tell you, I think I have some pretty good energy. I hope, but this guy, check out thebadcousin.com
Okay.
thebadcousin.com. This guy named Sean, he's whoa, but it seems like a great guy to party with.
Oh
A
yeah.
lot of fun, a lot of energy. So we're gonna have him online next or on this Thursday coming up, and then again to a little more later on. But there's a guy named Nick Uzilia. I'm probably saying it quite wrong, but it's like that.
Okay.
And he is from Generations Fantasy Sports, and we'll get into that in a little bit and what they do, which I think is a great and very interesting concept. So
Yeah, so yeah,
that's
definitely. Yeah, people
so
can look into those. We're excited to be on those podcasts. Well, you are excited to be on those podcasts. I'm excited to
yeah.
host anyone that I can be a part of. We'll see. You know, we're always happy to
Well,
make it work.
if you get a chance to go down to the expo next year, either as a business or as a fan, please do it. It is really, really cool. So,
Yeah,
and we have already committed to being the Friday night sponsor again for next year. So,
absolutely.
August 8th.
You'll see us there. You might see these bracelets
Yeah,
again, you know?
bracelet. And a shout out to Green Gridiron, the orange one. Yes,
Oh.
their name is Green Gridiron, but they have an orange bracelet. They make cool, cool helmets.
Oh.
And we'll get into more about that, another time. But we actually may have them commissioned to make a helmet for our prizes, and these are legit, full size, real helmets that the NFL players wear. So they have a pretty cool assortment there that we could check out. It was cool, really,
Yeah.
really great time. So glad we went down there.
Yeah, super cool.
Do you got a booyah for me?
Oh yeah, I can drop a little booyah here.
Booyah!
Booyah.
There we go. Yeah, that's what it's all about. So booyah.
All right, so let's hop into
So
this next little topic then. I got ourselves this little news thing. We could break into some news
yeah.
because there's been a lot of good stuff going on here.
Well, there was a full slate of games. The first full slate of games for the 2024 preseason week one happened this week.
Hmm.
And like every game, every week, there's some injuries. And there's some that are, key. And we'll get into those a little bit. But there are some things happening right now that I want to discuss with three individuals by name. You probably have heard recently about the whole CD Lamb thing, and
Yeah,
CD Lamb, all this wonderful hype, and obviously he's one of the top players, not just receivers, but top players in the NFL. A lot of us are going to have him at our 1-1 or 1-2 pick kind of thing. So really, really high commitment there from on the level for all of us to get him, and he's holding out.
yeah.
It's costing him $40,000 a day to not be playing football.
Wow. I
He's
mean,
already at, I think, $1.3 million that he's lost.
is he
Now,
really?
well, his contract, I believe, I think it's $18 million this year. So yeah, he's got a few dollars to spend,
Sure.
but
Right.
he wants to be in the dollar range where Justin Jefferson is and Tyreek Hill is, and that's getting close to that $30 million range. I'm not trying to pick stuff out and bad press and whatever, but he's not playing his last year on his $18 million contract
Yeah.
because he wants the money.
I mean, I'll go out here and say, I can understand everybody's got their own things going on. CD Lamb obviously wants more money. I don't know what he's got going on in his bank account or whatever. I don't know what kind
Right.
of bills he's got to pay.
Right.
But to me, I would go as far as saying that CD Lamb needs to get over it and get on that field and finish that contract before trying to renegotiate more money. I mean, it's great and all. Don't get me wrong. Like, you've done amazing stuff, and that's awesome. Like, by all means, you should feel
Right.
good about it and you should feel confident that you can make more money, but wait for your contract to go up. Like, I get that people feel special, and people, when they see other people fighting for more money, they're like, oh well, why can't I do that? If I saw this person got paid more, why can't I get paid more? But
Right.
like, let's play a game. Finish your contract, make a new contract, demand more money. Then that's just the natural way of doing it. To me, it seems
Well,
like a little, and I'll go as far as saying that it might be egregious, but it seems like a little bit of a BS move.
and I don't know CD Lamb from anybody else, and I
Right.
I don't know him, so I can't judge his character or whatever. But I think this is what you're going to see, or what you're seeing, even in college football. You have players jumping to different teams because they have bigger NIL money. So
Right.
I understand that
100%.
getting money is, you're playing in a very dangerous sport that you probably won't be playing in more than 2 or 3 years unless you're super, lucky, I guess, in
Hmm.
that aspect. So make your money now. I'm totally for that. But you're a team, and what you do affects other people. And there's discussion this morning about the effect of CeeDee Lamb not being there might be affecting Dak Prescott, and not just from a fantasy football level, but as a Dallas Cowboy
Right.
fan level. So those are all kind of things happening there. But so CeeDee Lamb is one of the guys. The other guy I want to talk about is Hassan Reddick. Hassan Reddick is one of the best outside linebackers, defensive ends, whatever you want to call him. Happens to be for the New York Jets, which is one of the best defensive teams out there. And
Hmm.
he had, I think, 10 and a half sacks last year, just constantly in the backfield, wrecking plays up and all that. Well, he wants to be traded. And he also is
Right.
being fined every single day for not being in camp and not participating in camp. He wants to be traded. So here you go, take one of the best defensive players on the team and then theoretically even in the game, and now he wants to be traded.
Yeah.
So that's going to make the Jets defense not quite as good.
This is
All right.
tough
So
too. The Jets are in a
yeah,
very tumultuous spot right now as it is. So
they are.
they don't want to be losing a great outside linebacker. Like, their defense needs to be rock solid so that their offense can be a little bit shaky and kind of get their feet before they kind of get the ball rolling,
Yeah. And with the question marks on from what Aaron Rodgers has, the Jets don't need that kind of drama. So
Right.
okay, so Hassan Reddick is number two. Number three is the guy who's been on the news a lot for the past could be 3 or 4 weeks now, is Brandon Ayuk.
Hmm.
So he's still wants to be traded. And I did hear there's some talks between him and the 49ers trying to come together with an agreement. Hey, that's wonderful and that's great. Either get it done or the old adage, you know what, got the pot, right?
Hmm.
So either do it or don't. And I have heard that he turned down a pretty substantial raise from I think the Cleveland Browns to go with this their team. So I don't know, but now we got Brandon Ayuk who's still not on the team. So
So
my question to you, Paul, is which player from a holding out perspective might have the most negative effect on their team's week one? And then if they do hold out longer, which team's going to be affected the most in the long run? So they got CeeDee Lamb and the Dallas Cowboys, Hassan Reddick and the New York Jets, or Brandon Ayuk and the 49ers. What do you think?
man, that's a really tough call. I really want to go with um Reddick. Like my heart is leaning towards Reddick, and it's because of the state that the Jets are in right now. And I think that them losing Reddick might put them into um just too much of a deficit to really stand their ground against the teams throughout the rest of the year, right? But I'm torn here. I can't say that fully because CD Lamb, right? This is a top level player that you would not be getting access for your team. Like so, the Cowboys need CD Lamb 100%.
Mm-hmm.
They can't just not have him. And if they do not have him, they need to have a rock solid replacement for him. And I don't know if you're going to be able to replace CD Lamb that easily. Like that's not an easy replacement. So I would
Yeah.
say that my heart is leaning towards Reddick, but the logical side of me is saying CD Lamb is the more likely resulting for more points for your team. But I think I don't know with the state that the Jets are in, I'm leaning that way for sure. I'm gonna put
Yeah.
my official bet on Reddick being the one that would affect the team the most if they are not playing.
Well, I think I agree with you exactly on that. With the 49ers and Brandon Ayuk, they still have a really good team. They have McCaffrey, they have Kittle as tight end, they have Debo Samuel out there.
Right.
So they still have some offensive weapons there for 49ers. So, yeah, as much as Brandon Ayuk is going to hurt, and there are other receivers who have been cut and who will be cut between now and the end of preseason. So they can get somebody to kind of take the space of Brandon Ayuk because you have a Debo Samuel on the other side of the field. But in Dallas, their running back is either Ezekiel Elliott,
Mm-hmm.
who is way past his prime, who hasn't had a really good year in, I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
Right.
You have Rico Dowdle, which, okay, he's young, possibly got some skills to him, but he's not that good yet. And
He's not
then
reliable in that
Deuce
way.
Vaughn and Deuce Vaughn. So
Mm-hmm.
really, there's not anybody on the running back side, and their other receiver would be Brandon Cooks, who's a journeyman, been around a long, long time. So I don't see him being anything superstar kind of guy.
Yeah.
So Dallas really needs to get CeeDee Lamb on under contract. Just needs to happen.
I agree.
I don't care somewhere between where they are and what they want to be, but it's got to get done.
I believe I was listening to the Fantasy Footballers podcast, and they had made a prediction that they called like a promise or something like that. They were very confident with their prediction about CD Lamb being signed and re-signed, just due to how important he is, and that the fact that like
Right.
if he's kind of got he's got the Cowboys by the gonads right here, and I don't think that they're able to let him go. You know, they've got to kind of bend to it eventually. Granted, you know, for what it's worth, they're taxing him for each day that he's putting this little
Mm-hmm.
statement out there, right? But overall, you know, he's doing this so that he can get more money anyways, and as long as the money that he gets is more than the money that he's lost over this period of time, like he's fine.
Yeah, yeah, he's fine. Like you're right. Dallas does, is being held in an appropriate way, in an inappropriate way. Um, but they have to pay Prescott. They paid Dak. They have to pay Micah Parsons,
Sure,
and
yeah.
they got to pay CeeDee Lamb. So there's a pile of money. I mean, it's a big pile of money, but it's a pile of money. There's
Hmm.
no money, and you can keep adding into it. It's just a pile, and you gotta give pieces away, but that pile will disappear pretty soon. So,
Yeah.
anyways, Dallas is a concern. Having Hassan Reddick, which I think it'd be great if the Lions could work out some way of getting this trade done. 'Cause I think he would be awesome. addition to the Lions team, other side of Hutchinson,
Sure.
that would be awesome.
Hmm.
Uh, so yeah, we have two guys, Hutchinson and then Hassan.
I actually
He'll
want
be
to state something about Hassan. So,
yeah.
just looking at the news here really quick, I learned about this recent thing that happened with his general manager, Joe Douglas, apparently making a statement on Monday. So, it would have been yesterday on the 8/12. And he said that, like I said, we're excited about our group. Still looking forward to get him on here when he's ready. And when he's
Mhm.
ready, we're going to embrace him with open arms. And that's talking about Hassan Reddick. So it's pretty clear right there that, and I love the way that general managers don't mess around. They're not going to pay him any extra. They're going to wait for him to come back. And if he chooses not to, I think they're going to move on to something else. I think that the reason I'm bringing this up is because, like you said, the team does have to pay their whole team, and I don't think they're willing to expend any more of their budget on him at this current point in time, right?
Mhm.
And I think that that's just the way it is. So I think that it's up to Hassan Reddick to either get traded to another team, which would be awesome to have him on Detroit, or to kind of get over it and get on the field and play.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so those are the three guys. So, but I do agree with you that having Hassan Reddick not on the Jets is going to have a big trickle down effect because
Right.
some of the best things an offense can have is a solid defense on their side of the ball, right?
a hundred
So if the
percent.
Jets offense is better with a strong Jets defense, then that's awesome. But the Jets defense isn't very good because they lost is one guy. Now, again, it's one of 11, right?
Mm-hmm.
11 guys on the field. There's one guy over here. I understand he's just one guy, but that one guy, he got 10 and a half sacks. I forgot how many pressures he had, how many hits he had. So
Right.
it's not just 10 and a half sacks. It's a lot. He's in the quarterback's face a lot.
And he has a presence on the field every single game,
He
right?
does. He
So
does.
you can't just ignore those players.
Yeah, not at all. So, anyways, so that's my thought on it. Get them all those guys back in the field and get the game because now, as we as fans, we want to see the best team out there and the best players out there. We
Right.
want to see CD and we want to see Hassan and Brandon on the field and not just walking around the sidelines. So
Mm-hmm.
that's my little soapbox there. So
Yeah. What else we got here?
we have rookies. So we had an awesome rookie class of quarterbacks taken. It's been
Oh yeah.
documented many times. 5 quarterbacks taken in the first round.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Caleb Williams for the Bears, Jaden Daniels for the Commanders, Drake May, Patriots, JJ McCarthy for the Vikings, and Bo Nix for the Denver Broncos. So those people, I'm not even counting on Randy Penix or Michael Penix for Atlanta because he's not playing much yet. So we had 5 quarterbacks who played this past week.
Mm-hmm.
And if you saw any of the games, whatever, far and away, the one that balled out the best was McCarthy. Two
Right.
touchdowns, awesome deep pass on the left sideline, probably 50 yards, right in stride, near the goal line, touchdown, great pass. He did throw one pick early on, and I liked his interview afterwards. He said that in this game, bad things happen, and you get a chance to redeem yourself and build upon that. So that's what he did. Caleb Williams had a really good day too. He made his one running pass. He ran to his right, on the run threw a dart about 20 yards downfield to Cole Komet. Awesome
Nice.
play, right on target. So if he can do that regularly, the Bears' outlook is going to be awesome for this team this year. Jaden Daniels and had another really good deep pass on the right hand sideline, and then he ran the ball for a touchdown, like a 3 yard scamper. So that was pretty awesome. I didn't see anything outstanding from Bo Nix. And Drake May only played one series, but they had some rain in New England, so he didn't play just
Mm.
because of injuries.
Right.
But I'm the belief that I don't think a rookie quarterback should start at the first year. I think that's an awful lot of pressure on a 22, 23. I guess they're older now because of COVID, but 22, 23-year-old guy, and you're
Yeah.
28. So, go back yourself 4 or 5 years, right? And now you're on the team starting a quarterback as a rookie in the NFL.
Right.
That's a lot of pressure.
Especially if
So,
you make yourself into those playoff games, you get in the Super Bowl, like you're all of a sudden a rookie quarterback, and you have to try to perform in the absolute best game in the
right,
league. Like I
right.
don't know. It is a lot of pressure there for sure.
So I always, my thought is it'd be great having a bridge quarterback. That's the phrase, like a Sam Darnold for the Vikings. He's been around the league for a long time. We know who Sam Darnold is, and he probably won't change anything special with his skills and his arm strength and what he has. But what he does is he brings some veteran savviness to the field, and that allows, in this case, McCarthy to sit beneath them, to watch him a little bit, to learn, and then maybe in some point halfway through the season, I always say week 6, but whatever number it is, then that rookie now has a chance to play. Well, McCarthy is going to be out for a while now
I was gonna say,
because
right? You keep mentioning McCarthy, but unfortunately,
he just got I guess a torn meniscus.
torn meniscus. Yep, yep.
Yeah, he needs to go through a minor, I guess they say minor, knee procedure, which is I think 4 to 6 weeks out.
Yeah,
So he might miss 3 games, 3 actual NFL
like
games.
season games, right?
Yeah, which again, that sucks that he's missing it and his knee injury and that kind of stuff. But I don't think sitting out 3 or 4 weeks is going to be anything bad in this case. I don't
Right.
think so.
I don't think it'll
Right.
restrict his ability. I think that if we were to calculate the risk of him, his risk of lingering injury definitely goes up. And it's disappointing for this to happen so early on in his career because he is such a promising player. So it is something to consider that, McCarthy going against a big, strong defense or something like the Ravens, that he
Yeah.
might be a more dangerous choice to go with. But, you know, especially in our league with EFFL or Extreme Exchange, you can take him and leave him as you please. So I
Yep.
definitely think that, like you said, he's got the ability, he's got the talent, and I don't think 4 weeks of missing some play is going to stop his skill from being able to really go
Yeah.
far. And he did well in that first season game, so he's got the ability to do it, especially
He does.
against those like second string players, third string players, stuff like that. So it might be a little bit different in a primetime real game experience, but I do think that he'd be able to get through it. I think it just comes down to a matter of him staying healthy.
Yeah, that's a key for everybody, obviously. But you're right. I'm not a huge Caleb Williams fan, and he only played. I think he only threw like 7 passes, but he looked good. He got out of the pocket well. He threw on the run. He did a little dump off to DeAndre Swift with a blitz coming. So I think that's great. I like the fact that these quarterbacks can come from the end from college and then play and be skilled enough to represent. I still think that maybe 1 year or even half a year of seasoning at this speed might be what they all need. But hey, so far those 5 quarterbacks haven't done anything really bad. Well, Bo Nix, I don't remember his stats, but Drake May just didn't play much. So,
Yeah.
um, so
We'll see. I think it's
but
interesting. I think that they're hungry, right? Like they're rookies. They want that trophy. They want to get
yeah,
that notoriety for being the best rookie of all time for whatever metric. You know,
yep,
they're hungry. They
yep,
can do it.
they are. Well, and then speaking of injuries, which again, unfortunately, McCarthy had an injury. There are some injuries out there, and probably one of the biggest names on one of the biggest team names out there is Marquise. They call him Hollywood Brown
Hmm.
for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's got a dislocated shoulder. Now, fortunately, it does not require surgery. So, because I'm thinking that the Chiefs don't have that deep threat, and maybe
Right.
Xavier Worthy, the new freshman coming, or the new rookie coming in here. They may have that something with him, but he's a freshman, kind of a rookie, whatever.
Yeah. Rookie
But
wide receivers
Hollywood
tend to do
Brown, yeah,
well
yeah, yeah, yeah,
second year.
um,
Right.
yeah. But Hollywood Brown, he's been around a while, and he's known to be the deep threat, and that's what Mahomes needs. So Hollywood Brown is injured, out for a few weeks, but I don't think anything too major. So I guess on that point, it's a good thing, but it's still a concern. It's still a concern.
Hmm.
Um, the Lions had 3 injuries this past yesterday.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, so Jameer Gibbs has a
Hmm.
hamstring. Terrion Arnold has, I think, upper body injury, and Ennis Rakestraw, other cornerback, has a leg injury, and they're all minor, and they're all going to be
Hmm.
fine because you still have 3 weeks before the game's first game starts. So they'll all be healed properly. But it's just those kind of little things. And I'm not going to harp on it any more than this one sentence here, is that in the EFFL, we don't worry about long-term injuries.
Yeah.
So if you don't know why, check it out. But we don't worry about those injuries. So if you get hurt in the game, that's great. I mean, it's not great, but it is what it is. But
It's not detrimental to your team. Yeah.
it's not at all, not here. That's what makes us different and special.
Absolutely.
So, so yeah, let's move on if you can, Paul. Play that EFFL little soundbite here, and let's take a switch over to the EFFL and get into a little bit of the extreme exchange.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Before we get too into the EFFL stuff, I do want to remind everybody to like and subscribe if you're listening. If you made it this far, we definitely appreciate it. And yeah, make sure you follow us. Check us out on extremeFFL.com. And yeah, do all the things. We really appreciate it.
yeah. And like we said last week, also, in any one of our ways to get a hold of us, you can ask questions regarding EFFL
Yes.
questions, extreme questions, NFL questions. And if we get some, we'll make sure we mention them on the show and we'll give you a little shout out too.
Yeah, we're gonna
So,
try to be sending out a little message here on social medias on the Friday the 16th. We'll do what we can to make it happen. If not, then we'll readjust to the 23rd. But we want to get these questions out there so that we can help
kick
answer
that
these for
can down the
everybody.
road.
Exactly. We'll figure it out, but we'll get those questions answered one way or the other.
Exactly. Exactly. All right. So, like I mentioned to you, I was at the expo and the exchange was just so well received. So I want to go into a little bit about that again, and again, $1,000 portfolio as you get, you buy anybody you want, blah 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 blah. It's been documented in the show a long time. But what I want to get into is the scoring because people asked, how does the scoring work? And it's not as simple as it might find. Well, it's not simple as the EFFL, just so we know. But what I tried to do is I tried to make the average player in the quarterback, running back, receiver, tight end, offense, and defense, the average player slash team is in the $100 range of the top 32 players out there.
Right.
So I dug in a little bit and I messed around with some of the stats and the numbers, and it's kind of confusing and it's kind of like what the heck is that, dude? But just take it for granted, or take it from me that it's simple. What I've done on the quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, and tight ends, we only worry about the total net yards that they have created or gained, and touchdowns that they got, and then turnovers they got. That's it.
Hmm.
So I don't need completions. I don't need yards per reception. I don't need yards per rush. I don't need any of that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, because total net yards, which is rushing, receiving, and or passing,
Hmm.
then touchdowns that they're involved in, and then if they have a turnover, that's it. So those are the things I care about as far as the players go. Pretty easy, right, Paul?
Yeah, and I actually want to bring this back because I was listening to somebody talking about standard draft leagues, and they were mentioning that it's just interesting. The way that you have to talk about draft leagues is by starting it off by saying these are the restrictions to the league within
Hmm.
these essentially like purchasing opportunities. I want to make XYZ moves to try to do this
Right.
because of the value on each of these players, and because like rushing quarterbacks might not be as effective as passing quarterbacks, and like
Hmm.
and all of those sorts of things. It's so it's definitely something strategic, which is great because strategy is always fun. But when you can, that's it, to me it's just a headache. Like there is so much more strategy that's more interesting. We are like, all right, let's go to team matchups. Let's figure out players' histories. Let's figure out the individual statistics of the rushing and passing. You don't have to say which one is better than the other. You just have to say you need to know your players, right? And so
Hmm.
that is absolutely here. And it just makes me so happy to know that when I listen to other people talk about just varieties of leagues, that all of that confusion that goes into the beginning of all those statements saying you have to do this, XYZ things are more important in this league, so let's favor those sorts of things. Like, no, you play the game that you know and you do well
Hmm.
with it, right? And I think that that's what's so cool about the Extreme Exchange.
Yeah. Very well said. on the way down to Canton, I have, of course, I'm on listening to the XM radio quite a bit, and people call in. All right, I'm on a half PPR 12 team keeper, and it's run heavy. It's 6 points for touchdown and rushing, and 4 points for passing touchdowns.
Sure.
And if you do it over 30 yards, you get an extra point. And I'm just like, what? Yeah, so I'm like, okay, I mean, and I understand it. I've done all those.
Right.
Maybe not you, Paul, but I've done all
Hmm.
those different kind of variances and things, and it is kind of confusing. But if I create it, it's not that difficult.
Right.
So again, net yards, touchdowns, and turnovers. That's all we care about.
Hmm.
So we will get into a little bit about in a couple seconds here. We'll get into who the average players and slash teams are, and also who the highest priced player slash team is. So you can kind of get a barometer of where we are in that situation. So
Right.
okay. So now, different than most leagues, if not all leagues, we have an offensive team category. We have that also in the EFFL, but then we have it in the exchange.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of different stats that can go into an NFL team, a lot more than there are for players. So, but all we use are simply the points on the offensive team, the points that they score, any turnovers that they have, their net yards that they have, and if they win or lose.
Yeah.
So points scored, total net yards, turnovers, and if they win or lose.
Nice.
Again,
And that's super simple.
very simple. I know we're not in a math class here, so we're not trying to get into any kind of math thing here, but trying to keep it as simple as possible. So that's
Oh
just
yeah.
it. Those are four things. And on the defense, it's similar to that. Talk about the points against you, the turnovers, and the win loss and the sacks. So you get turnovers, sacks, win loss, and points against. I know I have it as net yards on my screen there, Paul, but it's in the notes, but it's not quite on defense.
Sure.
It's
Right.
points against, sacks, turnovers, and wins loss.
Right. Yeah.
Again, simple, right?
That's the
What's
way
the
we like
old
it.
this method? Keep it simple. Keep it simple, stupid. That's what I do. Keep it simple, stupid.
Hey, that's the way we like it.
That's how we do it. So easy to explain, easy to play. So that's what it's all about. So those are some of the scoring, and we'll have a little video with probably either my voice or Paul's voice doing a voiceover
Yep. One of us.
of describing and showing the screens how the scoring would work on the exchange. But again, there it is, pretty simple and laid out easily.
Yeah.
So
And something
all
that I
right,
love about this I just want to touch on the fact that we do offensive teams as an option, and it's just really exciting to be because everyone knows offensive teams. I feel like defensive teams only kind of get noticed if they do really well, like the Ravens, where like offensive teams, everyone knows their quarterback, everyone knows their
yeah,
running back, everyone knows what their front line is looking like, on their roster, or not front line like offensive line, but all their star players on their first
mhm,
strings. People know that, and
yeah.
it's cool that you can kind of get something into it. I know, like I've written down notes here for like sub teams that I want to add just in case they start doing well, like the Cardinals and Chargers and Jets. That like if I see
Yeah.
them taking off, I want to consider them for my team.
Yeah. Yep.
It's cool.
Yep. So, all right, let's get into a little bit about where the average player is by position, and then where the high watermark is for that. So, on the quarterback's perspective, the average quarterback, based on his last year's stats, is Tua Tagovailoa at $101.13. So 101.13 is Tua, and the highest priced quarterback is Dak Prescott at 181.36. So you got like 80
Yeah.
bucks difference there, and you can have Tua at $80, or you can have Dak and not 80 bucks. So there's your options there, and there's just an
Right.
idea of where the average quarterback is. Now people might argue that Tua is better than average, and he may be. I think Miami's offense is better than average,
Right.
but Tua's stats, they're not they're not super on the
Stand
top, right?
out. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the thing is that when it comes to the stats, his previous year he did not perform at that. So if you think he's a better quarterback, then that's a good bet. That's time to go for it. That's when you pull that
Yeah.
trigger.
Remember, his net yards, touchdowns, and turnovers are what make this is what it is.
Right.
Running backs, Austin Eckler is at $101.69. And of course, Christian McCaffrey is at $207.90. Now, rookies who were drafted in rounds 2 through 4 also have a $100 value. I think Jonathan Brooks is in there. So I didn't want to get into those. I picked players who already performed last year. So Austin Eckler is about the average running back at 101 and change.
And I'd also like to state that Christian McCaffrey is a solid $20 above most other first place positions. You know, so he is a little bit of an outstanding player, but he is an outstanding player, so it makes sense.
Wow, look at that, Jeff. So I did comment to people at the expo. I said that these players who played last year are playing against their ghost, their last year's ghost. So that's what they're playing against, and so that's what it's all about. So,
I love that idea. I love that.
Yeah. Receivers, Calvin Ridley, $99.93 is his price, and Tyreek Hill is the high guy at $177.66. So Calvin Ridley, he's the average. So there it goes. And again, I'm taking just the top 32. So theoretically, the single starter from each team to get these stats, not the third or fourth string guy who didn't play hardly at all. So
right.
Tight end Dalton Schultz, $97.92 is the average guy, and Mark Andrews is the high at 173. So there you go.
Nice.
Offensively, team wise, Seattle is $100.98 is the average, and Baltimore is at 177.87.
Man, I forgot that Baltimore was that high up on the offense.
Yeah, and they added Derrick Henry this year, so they may actually be higher than 177.
Yeah.
And Zay Flowers has had a really, really good. He's relatively new. I think his second year, a third-year player.
What position is he?
Is Zay Z-A-Y Flowers?
Okay.
So he's an awesome receiver for Baltimore. So Baltimore's got a really, really good team. So that's what they are.
I'm excited for Derrick Henry. I know I've got him on my list of running backs.
Yeah. And then defensively, Jacksonville is at 101.71, and Baltimore is high at 172.71. So Baltimore is the highest defense and offense, so you know.
Nice.
Yeah. So, anyways, go ahead and get that music playing. We're going to start heading on out of here and talk about our podcast 24 promo code. So if you want to register, you can go to extremeFFL.com and register your name, log in, and when you put that registration, put in podcast 2024 for a discount of 20% off of a team entry.
Oh, yeah.
So there's that for you, Paul. And next week, we have an exciting guest I mentioned before, Nick Uzilia from Generations Fantasy Football, Fantasy Sports. But this is pretty cool. What I understand, and I'll have Nick clarify a little better here, but Generations is they pick any player in the past and any player currently, but their last year's games, not this year's games. And then the computer randomly picks a game from that person's career and plays against each other.
Interesting.
If you want Barry Sanders, you can get Barry Sanders. If you want
that's
Jerry
really
Rice,
cool.
you can get Jerry Rice. And just some random game out of their career. So I want to hear more about that. So make sure you check out next week with Nick Uzilia from Generations Fantasy Sports.
Oh, yeah.
So I asked Joe Bliss if you could pick anybody from the past, who would you pick? And they both agreed. This is kind of strange. Jerry Rice.
Interesting. I thought you guys would go with Barry Sanders.
I probably would have, but I think Jerry Rice he's just phenomenal. So
yeah, I mean he's a workhorse of an individual. I love Jerry Rice too, for sure. Yeah.
So, all right. Well, as we always say, when life gives you a chance, make it happen. And myself and Paul, peace. You're out of here.